Morning, everybody. Welcome to day 15 of our March Micro Minimizing Challenge. We are halfway through the month. That's very exciting. I hope you've enjoyed following along so far. Today, I am discussing herbs and spices. So we're going to go through our spice cupboard or spice drawer or spice rack, whatever it is that you have in your home. I recently finished some cinnamon that I'd had, and I had bought quite a large container of cinnamon, and it lasted me a very long time. And I learned a really important lesson when I finished that cinnamon and I ordered some new cinnamon. I hadn't realized that when I add cinnamon to my morning smoothie, I guess over time I kept adding more and more and more because the cinnamon I had gone stale. And so I got the new cinnamon and I added the same amount of the new cinnamon as I was for prior, and my smoothie was basically undrinkable. It was so cinnamony. It was absolutely too much, and it was awful. So I learned a lesson that, spices do go off, herbs do go off, and they become stale, and you do need to replace them. So one of the lessons is buy in smaller amounts, right? And so that you kind of buy what you can use in a reasonable amount of time. So for ground herbs and spices, that is about 6 months to a year. And for whole seeds, and if you're open to the idea of grinding your own spices, which is fabulous, by the way, I do that for some of mine, then the whole seeds can last 5 to 6 years. So you can buy a big container of those and then just grind down enough for what you would think you would use in about 4 to 6 months. The best storage for herbs and spices is either glass or ceramic. Again, getting rid of that plastic container out of your kitchen. So how do you tell, though, from while you're going through your herbs and spices today? You're going to pull everything out of that drawer and put them in a place where, you can work with them, whether it's the kitchen counter or your dining table again. And you're going to check them. You can trust your nose, okay? If it's no longer fragrant, they have gone stale. They are not providing the best flavor to your cooking. Again, if they're ground and if they're over 6 months, over a year, they've probably gone stale, could use replacing. So as you're going through them, ask yourself, when was the last time that you used this spice? Is this a spice you use regularly? Is it one you use rarely? Will you use it in the future? Did you even like it when you used it? Right? Is it just taking up space? If it's not something, even if it smells good still, if you're not using it, it's just taking up space. And spices can be composted, right? And then recycle the containers. So spices, when you're storing your spices, so when you're ready to put them back in their home, ask yourself if this is the right home in your kitchen. So spices like cool, dark, and dry spaces. Okay, so if you have them sitting on the counter in the full sunlight, you're going to be shortening the life of your spices. If you have them in a drawer or cupboard, great, that's dark, and that's great, and hopefully dry. You want to avoid drawer or cupboards that are positioned near a stove, your oven, your sink, your dishwasher, or even above where you boil your kettle or have your coffee maker, because the humidity goes up into the spice area and that can create all kinds of problems. You want to avoid the humidity. Okay, so think about that when you're thinking where to put where the best home is in your kitchen for the spices. That might require a little bit of rearranging in your cupboards if you've had them in a spot that's not ideal for keeping them nice and fresh. Moving forward, you want to, I would say, probably avoid, those Costco big bottles. Those are designed, remember when Costco first came, it was designed as a business supply store, right? So they were supplying restaurants and whatnot that go through these great big batches of whatever it is that they're selling. So if you're not using up the herb or spice within that 4 to 6 months if they're ground, then, you know, buying a big bottle from Costco is really just a waste of money. You're better off buying the smaller containers that you actually go through. Even though those smaller containers are going to cost a bit more to buy, in the long run, you're actually going to save on the product that you're going to end up wasting. That's not good. And if you are using it past its prime, then you're not benefiting from the great flavors that your meals could be having. So, you know, buy in the quantities that you think is reasonable that you're going to be using. So there's some controversy around, should you store your herbs and spices in the freezer? And the research that I did on this has the jury out on one way or the other. And the arguments are that if you store in the freezer, it can prolong the life of your herbs and spices, which sounds great. On the other hand, the other side of the argument is that once you have frozen your spices and herbs, when you pull them out of the freezer, then they're at risk of getting condensation in them as they come back up to room temperature. And then once they get wet, the humidity is not good. Now they encourage bacteria growth. And that's the risk of keeping them in the freezer. So personally, I've decided that I'm not storing any of my herbs and spices in the freezer. To me, bacteria growth is a bigger risk than extending the life of my herbs and spices. I do have some herbs and spices that I keep in seed form, and I grind myself. They are absolutely my favorite to use because they smell so wonderful when they are freshly ground. I grind enough to last, the 4 to 6 months that I think I'm going to use them up. And so you're not grinding spices every single time you're making a recipe. That would become inconvenient, and then nobody would want to do that. So if you're going to grind your own spices, grind enough that you're going to use it for a few recipes for a few months, right? Before you have to spend the time doing that again. So that's about all I have to say on that. Hopefully you get through your herbs and spices today, and that it's fun, and that you have a good time, and that you lighten your load. All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day.